every shot. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the proud's electrified. There, under the stadium lights, religious thrive. Every touchdown with close to clock west. In Detroit we stand. Get down there. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Red football dreams in every shop. Feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight.
All right. Welcome into the Rise and Grind Morning Show. We got a hot topic today. Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, when they departure, if they departure, is Sheila Hamp willing to pay through the roof to keep one or both of these guys in Detroit? That is going to be the main topic of today. And we're going to get to that right after we get to some Lions quotes from the postgame. Brian Branch's postgame message, which will be coming up here in just a few seconds. Eric's got an over-under for us today. We've got post-Week 18 rankings heading into the wild card week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got a message. And then Jared Goff's post-game interview, man. I really appreciated what Jared Goff had said. We're gonna play you the clip, talk about that. Then after last season, or after this season, I apologize, there's a lot of coaching vacancies. That's going to be the main topic of this morning. What is going to happen to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn? Eric, we're going to get rolling here in just a minute, but I'm going to do that right when we get back from this ad from one of our new shows coming up soon.
Big guys in the huddle, man, talking football. NFL, college, man, they cover it all. Feel the tension, prediction, and the call. Fantasy life and rise or fall. Talking football night and day. NFL and college, hey, hey. Bets and stats, they don't play. Fantasy champs on our way. Guitars, roaring hearts, beating fast. Catch a pass, score, man, have a blast. Three voices, keeping it clear. Listen up, the season's here. Guitars, roaring hearts, beating fast. Catch a pass, score, man, have a blast. Three voices, keeping it clear. Listen up, the season's here. Talking football night and day. NFL and college, hey, hey. Bets and stats, they don't.
All right, welcome back. So Talking Football is going to be coming to you soon. Welcome in, Eric Rintamaki. How you doing this morning, man?
I'm fantastic. I got a little nap in. I went to bed at 9 p.m. after not sleeping for a day and a half. Got my tickets all figured out for both weekends. When we make it to the NFC Championship game, I already got my tickets secured. So thank you, Gary Fron. We got it all figured out, and it's going to be awesome.
It's awesome that you got yours settled, man. At least I didn't have to worry about going. I was just worried about how many people can I bring with me. So last year, I gave somebody some tickets to the game at cost, and that dude turned out to be a complete jerk-off. So won't be doing that again. But anyway, yeah, I could have made thousands of dollars on those tickets, but we didn't. We're just not. We're not in that boat. We don't like to sell tickets. We try to bring people with us that we think are good people, but some people turn out to be backstabbers, I guess, and that's just the way of the world, I guess. But we don't really care, man. We're gonna end up burying that and everything else with it. So Lions post game, man. There was some post game quotes that I caught wind of this morning that I didn't see yesterday, and I would have rolled through these yesterday. And matter of fact, I don't even know if the article came out yesterday. It might have come out this morning, but I want to talk about Brian Branch for just a moment because he kind of gave us the perfect quote. It was so simple, but it was a perfect quote of this team, right? And who they are and what they are. As soon as I can get my broadcaster to behave. So let me play Brian Branch's post-game message, and then we're going to move on to the rest of the quotes.
Gritty and scrappy. We're gonna fight to the finish, and I feel like that's what separates us. We held a great offense to 9 points. Ain't no better than that.
So very simple, gritty and scrappy. I mean, grit's been a word that's been around for a hot minute, right? And every team is trying to adopt it. Every head coach is using it. And it's kind of getting played out, I think. I think the whole grit thing is getting played out. I mean, Dan Campbell really introduced that whole style, that whole mentality to the NFL. He did it from his first, interview as a head coach of the Detroit Lions, talking about kneecaps. And what nobody really understood back then was everything that Dan Campbell was saying in that very first interview was exactly who this team was going to become. It wasn't so much of, yeah, we're going to, take out your knees. I mean, that shouldn't be something that is misconstrued here with his message. It was, they're just going to be gritty. They're going to be scrappy. They're going to have this next man up attitude. And before you know it, they're going to be the last team standing. And we are right now witnessing that message from Dan Campbell today. And Brian Branch summed it up in those two words, gritty and scrappy. So now that you've heard Brian Branch and his message that he gave flowers to the Vikings, Eric, I mean, what did you think about his message and what's going to be going forward for this Lions team?
Yeah, dude, he's got it right on he nailed it. They are gritty. They're scrappy. They're coming for you. And we're just not going to give up. And it was absolutely demoralizing what the Lions defense did to the Vikings offense. And I think that is why Vikings fans and Vikings players are so salty about this week, is they weren't expecting our defense to come in and play like that at all. They were expecting to come in and put up for a 40 burger. That's what they thought they were going to do to us. And it did not happen that way. And I am telling you right now, the entire internet is crazy with salty Vikings fans that just are having the worst time accepting this loss. So you had Paul Farrington on last week, correct?
Yeah.
So I watched his show yesterday. I've never seen his show before. And he sent me a friend request on Facebook, and we hooked up talking on Messenger. So I decided I'd tune in and see what these guys said about the game. It is salty, man. It is very, very salty. Between him and his co-host, they were a little salty about this game. They were not expecting to come in and face a defense like this.
I don't think anybody expected it.
And whether it was Sam Darnold seeing ghosts or what it was, or him just overthrowing people, or Justin Jefferson not catching the ball, or TJ Hawkinson not catching the ball, to Alex Anzalone just locking Hawkinson down on coverage. They just did not see it coming. It would to Vikings fans, this was unbelievable. They could not believe what their eyes were seeing.
Yeah, I had nothing but great interactions, obviously, with Paul and his crew and Ziggy. I haven't met the other guy yet, but they sent me some messages after the game, or at least Paul did. And I mean, it was nothing but respect, right? They had nothing but respect for what the Lions did, and of course they didn't expect it. And it's the first thing he says: did not expect this to happen, not that way. Yeah. Ziggy mentioned during the interview that he, no one really expected TJ Hawkinson to have a great game, and he didn't. And for whatever reason, Sam Darnold was overthrowing just about everybody. Had he clicked on, just 3 or 4 of those throws, this is a different game. Mm-hmm. This is a much different game. He did get that one to Justin Jefferson. It was like 26 yards or whatever it was. But outside of that, I mean, there really wasn't much that happened. Holding another team to 0 touchdowns. This is the 3rd game for the Lions in this season to 0 touchdowns to a team.
Yep.
And people are slandering and defaming or whatever, libelous against Aaron Glenn. I think that's the biggest ticket to talk about is Aaron Glenn and what he did for this defense. And we're going to talk about that along with what Sean Payton said coming up here in just a little bit. Big message by Sean Payton. Big endorsement, if you will. If this is a political race, Sean Payton just gave Aaron Glenn the biggest endorsement possible.
Yep.
It's pretty exciting to see, what's going on. But let's hear from some of our Lions. So the Detroit Lions were capped by John Macaroon in the post-game quotes. So he did a really good article. It came out 14 hours ago, actually. And it was all the quotes of the Lions players, or some of the Lions players post-game. And so I'm going to read this collection by John Macaroon, and let's see what our takes are on it. So number 1 is Dan Campbell on running back Jahmyr Gibbs. He said, he was big, and I feel like he gained steam as the game went on. I thought he got better and better and better. You could really feel it after one of, the last stop we got in the red zone on the 4th down. And, the next carry, he was just breaks it down the sideline. You could feel it. So he was big for us. And we felt like he was going to need to be big for us to win that game. He was kind of that all these guys expected to play well for us. But we felt that Gibbs could somewhat be the X factor here. And he did. He showed up in a big way in the run game and the pass game. I mean, clearly, Jahmyr Gibbs is, he would be the MVP of this game. If this was a Super Bowl, if this was a playoff game or whatever, I mean, essentially it was a playoff game, he would have been the MVP hands down. It wouldn't have been Jared Goff. As much as I love Jared Goff and what he's done this season, that performance in that game was not Jared Goff. And I found it so funny that, Jared Goff only had like 2.7 seconds of time to throw, and Sam Darnold had like 3.18 seconds of time to throw on average, which I don't understand. Because we pressured him 33 times, more than 56% of the snaps. How did he end up with more time to throw? It defies the odds to me. But he couldn't complete anything. So anyway, on this quote of Dan Campbell here about Jahmyr Gibbs, give me your 30 seconds here on this quote.
On Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs. On that's what he had just said. He was talking about Jahmyr Gibbs being the X factor of this game.
Oh, yeah. 1,000,000%. He was heads above everyone else on the field on Sunday. He had a better performance than anyone else. If I was going to give people PFF grades, he'd get a 99. He was that good. I think he had one negative play on the whole entire day. Everything else was going forward. He was seeing the hole. He was actually hesitating and then hitting the hole, just like Craig Reynolds. And it was quite the accomplishment what he did the other night. 4 touchdowns, broke the record, 139 yards rushing, just unbelievable. So in a little bit, we're going to get to some questions and some over-unders. And I got a really good one about Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs coming up. It's going to be a really good question.
So, yeah, I mean, I see there's some questions or some messages here in the chat here. Brent Lighton says Darnold ran around enough, extending plays, I guess. I didn't see enough of that, really, but I guess I need to go back and watch the game for a third time to really focus on Darnold. Let's see here. Mateo Navarro says Aaron Glenn was at the Pistons game. Everyone was cheering for him. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Peter Van Larhoven, Van Ginkel is one hell of a player. Yeah, he is. And you know what's funny is there was another content creator last year that was calling Van Ginkel to the Lions, and man, would that have been an incredible pickup for the Lions. I mean, I expected Van Ginkel to get, the contract that he did. Nobody else really thought that he would get $10 million, and he did. He got $10 million plus. Had he not gotten that much money, maybe there would have been an opportunity. But that's the style of player that the Lions need to pick up in the draft, this next draft. Absolutely.
Could you imagine Van Ginkel, Thor, and Jack Campbell all together? Holy crap!
Oh, it'd be lights out. Nobody would be able to touch us.
My God!
I mean, just injecting Thor back into this defense, and it's not just him. I mean, let's be real for a moment. He had a huge impact on this defense. Aaron Glenn is the one that put this defense together. Aaron Glenn is the one that got these guys ready. Matter of fact, I don't want to give a whole segment away, but we might as well for just a moment. Aaron Glenn, in my opinion, we talked about it during the 49ers game, or at least I did when I was live. You were at the game. And I said, it appears to me like we're just not trying to show a whole lot. Like we are setting up what's about to happen in week 18. Because they look sloppy as all get out in the first half. They tightened up a little bit in the second half. They won the game. Right? Offensively, it came back in the second half. But what we are putting on tape in week 17, to me, looked like a complete setup job. Like they look terrible. And then you come into week 18 with the same defense. You've added one player and you play like a defense that is a top 5 defense all year long.
Yep.
It was a setup. Aaron Glenn set the entire NFL up with that tape. And now what they put on tape, everyone's going to have to be like, holy cow, like, what are we going to do? But now he could walk into the first game in the divisional round with a different style of defense that he's been playing throughout the year and totally get people off schedule here. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that first divisional game. Second quote. Go ahead.
So was it a setup, or was it that Anzalone was injured and he just couldn't run his defense the way he wanted to run it? For 4 weeks leading up to this game, we let every single team get at least 30 points on our defense. And that's all I heard going into this Vikings game. Oh, we're going to put up a 40 burger. Oh, we're going to put up a 50 burger. Oh, the Vikings are going to score at will. And they come in and nothing. Not a single touchdown. So was it the injection of Anzalone back in the defense, or was Glenn holding a little something back just in case for when we really needed it?
Could have been. I think it was a setup personally. I think that Aaron Glenn did it on purpose. I think that he played a very vanilla scheme against the 49ers. Probably didn't expect for them to do what they did in that game offensively, and then they tightened up in the second half. But so let's get down to Taylor Decker here. So after the game, he said the first time is always going to be the best, talking about last year, but kind of popping my cherry, I guess, right, is what he said. This might sound crazy to people, but to me, going out there tonight, it wasn't, are we going to win? It's by how much. That's how we felt. And we knew there's a lot of people that didn't feel that way. F them, is what he said. That's how I feel about it. Counting our defense out and talking bad about them, I mean, they were incredible today at all levels. I think that Dan said this before. Nobody's going to write our story but us. So special group. Let's talk about this for a second. Taylor Decker is pissed off that you're talking negative about his defense. We've never been that way. Not once. Yeah, we call out the holes to the defense that we've had, but since week 6, when Aiden Hutchinson went out, I have spoke nothing but highly about how impressive this defense has been, how well Aaron Glenn has been working his magic with, all of the issues that he's had to face, all of these, injuries that he's had to make up for. He's been incredible. He's been nothing but incredible. In the defense, I mean, the players themselves, this next man up mentality, whatever you want to call it, they've been incredible. Every single week I've expected a win. Even though that we kept losing players one after another, it was just stick to what works. Just continue to do what you've been doing, and you're going to be fine. We still had the interior pass rush. We still had everybody in the secondary up until Carlton went out. So I'm glad that I'm not getting called out by Taylor Decker right now. So Taylor Decker's emotional conversation here after the game, talking highly about his defense, and basically putting everybody on notice that it's not you, it's us. We don't care about you. It's us. How much are we going to win by is his message. And I sent you all these quotes to your email, by the way. So what do you think about, Eric?
I'm looking at it. Yeah. It's not if we're going to win, it's by how much. I love it. That's exactly it too. And that's the thinking in the building. And listen, there's something you've been talking about since I joined this show back in February. And that is,
damn, has it been that long already?
Yep. I've been almost a year now, coming up on a year here pretty quick. So there's something you've been talking about to me since last February, and it's a magic number. And that magic number is the number 20. Okay. So we talked about our defense and having a top 15 defense, top 10 defense. And we never really talked about whether it was like rushing defense or yardage defense or overall defense. I've always considered it scoring defense. Well, this is the end of the season, and guess where we're at? The Detroit Lions defense is at number 7 with 20.1 points per game. Exactly where we wanted to be. So I think last year we were at 23 points, so we shaved off another 3 points this year. So this defense is markedly better than last year's. Whether Terion Arnold plays or doesn't play in the next round of the playoffs, whether Pat O'Connor plays or doesn't play in the next round of the playoffs, I still think that this group collectively is much better than last year's defense.
So anytime you're able to take a football or a field goal off of the football field, it's huge, right? And you're talking a 18 game season that is averaged together to give you that 20.1 points per game that the defense is allowed. Now, if you go back to roughly week 13, 14, the Lions didn't give up but on average about 17, 18 points per game. And that's the defense that I see. The defense that was on the field this last Sunday night, that was the defense that was giving up 17.7 points per game on average this season. That's the defense that came out to play. That is the defense that we're working with. And to your point about Pat O'Connor, I think he's going to be okay. The latest news seems to be okay. And Terion Arnold, according to him, he's playing. So we'll see where that rolls. We'll probably get some updates next week. Like, it's probably going to take that long for us to get updates because it usually comes out before the game. Do us a favor. Real quick, I'm going to turn off ads for everybody. If you guys would just go ahead and like the stream. We got about 260 people watching right now. We've got close to 56 likes. We usually trade likes for ads. We don't like the ads just as much as you do. This channel's not about money. So if you kindly just like the stream real quick for us, I'm going to get these ads turned off so you can have a seamless interaction with the chat or just watching the show. Figures we'd get a ton of people in on the day that I'm sick. I told you guys every time I go to a game, I get sick and I feel like crap today, but I'm doing my best. All right. Ads are off. Appreciate it if you guys would like to stream. It really helps us grow. So yeah, I mean, to your points, we are who we are now. The postseason is here. We're going to ride who we ride with. And I don't think that the Lions are scared of riding with anybody that they have in that room, offense or defense. If the defense is having a bad day, the offense is going to have to step up. Jared Goff was not Jared Goff of this whole season in that first half of the game. And apparently we had to win on the ground. And the defense recognized that right away. And man, did they come in and they played. They played, their hearts out. So
while we're talking about defense, I have a question for you. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about Calais Campbell if he got released by the Dolphins. Well, I think it's too little too late now. I think it's too late in the season. I don't think we're going to take some free agent that hasn't played with the guys, that hasn't been here. We don't know if they have grit or not. They don't know if he's going to fit in or not. I think it's just too late. So even if he gets released, I do not see the Detroit Lions picking him up right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even think the Lions would have a chance because I think there's 3 or 4 teams in front of the Lions that would take a crack at it.
Because now I think it's only playoff teams that would have a crack at them, correct?
Yeah, and I think there's still 3 or 4 teams that are in front of the Lions.
Yeah.
The Chiefs for sure would want a shot. The Vikings would probably take a shot. The Broncos would probably take a shot. I mean, who wouldn't want Calais Campbell? I mean, he's been playing at an extremely high level. Haven't seen anything. Big shout out to Michael Garrity. He just gifted 5 Rocked On Detroit Lions memberships to Dwayne Tab, Jessica, me, myself, and I, Richard Coffey, Goose, and Doughboy Steve. So congratulations, Michael Garrity. Appreciate all of your contributions to the channel and all the donations that are going to Rocked On Cancer Foundation. All right, so Terion Arnold, he says this, at the end of the day, the same way when I went out today, Kindle Vildor's right there. You just get tired of hearing the slander of your teammates and stuff like that when everybody's a great football player. We are all in the NFL. We are all here for a reason. But it's the beauty of what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have done. Just as far as taking guys and putting them in the right place to be successful, you look at the guys like, I've said it time and time again, Amik was a hidden gem. Look at what he did on the biggest stage. The guy just played his behind off. I don't know if you guys have seen it on my Twitter, but last week I had Thor Nystrom on, who is a former NBC draft expert. He's now working for Fantasy Life. Check him out on Twitter. And of course, check out fantasylife.com. It's a fabulous website. They do a great job. Hopefully we'll have him on a few times during the draft this year to get his analysis. So he gave me some flowers yesterday. I was surprised. He went on Twitter and he said, I could back up Will Rock's call from this last weekend of Aaron Glenn's defense. Because I said that it would make perfect sense to put Amik Robertson on Jefferson, shade him, go in the too high safety look, and then drop Terion over on Addison's side and roll with it the entire game. And not so much try to, rush with the ends, but try to get the interior pass rush work. And it all worked and it all happened. It's almost like to Riley's point, he's like, Will, do you have Aaron Glenn's playbook? No, I don't. It was just an educated guess. It's what I've seen work all season. And when they do it that way, other than Amik hasn't been obviously on Justin Jefferson, but when they've done it this way, it's worked. But they did it a little bit differently, man. They put the pressure on. They were blitzing the linebackers like I expected, and it all worked. So big shout out to Thor, man. I appreciate you for stepping up and giving my flowers yesterday. Totally unexpected. So Terion Arnold, same thing, man. Here he's talking about Amik Robertson, how he's a hidden gem. You know, a lot of people called him out in the beginning of the season, saying that he just wasn't a good cornerback or whatever, and couldn't play on the outside. I knew he was coming in to be a slot corner. Never expected him to be on the outside unless he had to be, but I wasn't afraid of it. Not once. That's why I expected Amik to sit with Justin Jefferson all game. It was a perfect matchup, man. If you watch the way that Amik shaded him, he was matched hip for hip, step for step. He was cutting him off on his routes. He was stepping in front of the ball. Amik played a hell of a game. So for Terion Arnold here, calling everybody out, what do you think about this quote?
He's spot on. Listen, everyone has doubted this defense all year long. And what Amik Robertson did this week, absolutely amazing. And come to find out that he has played with against Justin Jefferson in high school, college, and now the pros. I had no clue. I didn't know that they had this big backstory. And when the Detroit Lions played the Vikings the first time at the Vikings, Justin Jefferson scored a touchdown. And he scored it on Amik Robertson. Burned him. Scored a touchdown. So what did Amik Robertson do? Went up to him. Hey, dude, great play. Awesome touchdown, man. You did a fantastic job against me today at the end of the game, right?
Yep.
So Sunday night comes around and we play them in Ford Field and Amik shuts him down. And at the end of the game, all the players go to the middle of the field, right? And they swap jerseys and all that kind of stuff. And Amik looks for Justin Jefferson. Well, he's already walking up the tunnel.
Yep.
Didn't say boo-hoo to him. Not one word. And then he went back to the locker room and cried about the refs to the media.
Saw that. I couldn't believe, and in hearing Amik, like, you got to give credit where credit's due. And I'm sorry, as a professional athlete, I mean, you really, in that sense, you have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, this guy just, came out and shut down one of the best top 2, top 3 wide receivers in the league. And this is not a corner that is on anybody's list right now as being a number 1 shutdown corner in the NFL. He just came out and played the best game of his life. And it's not saying that he can't back it up next week or in 2 weeks. He probably could.
Yep.
So,
well, there's one thing that Aaron Glenn is really, really smart about. So what do the refs let the DBs do in the playoffs? Every single year, they let them play. They let them get handsy. So man-to-man coverage works great in the playoffs. And this was like a playoff game, so Aaron Glenn knew this was going to work. He knew we could get kind of handsy and not get a call on every single play. Because after every single play, you saw Justin Jefferson throwing his hands up and doing, what the, where's my flag? Where's my flag? That he's used to getting all year long. Well, no, it's playoff time now. You're not going to get those flags. You have to play better.
Well, I think the ticky-tacky stuff has got to go. I mean, you've got to be able to identify what is a penalty? Like, what is hindering a wide receiver from running his route versus, okay, if your hand is just resting on their back or if your hand is kind of just brushing across their chest, is that really interfering? No. But in slow motion, to the millions of fans that watch this game, they're like, that's a foul. That's a penalty. That's pass interference. And so the public, they kind of sway the NFL to, hey, we've got to call a few more penalties because now all of this slow motion stuff is making everything look egregious, making everything look worse than what it is. And it does. I'm sorry, the game is played in full motion. When you watch it in slow motion, everything looks like a penalty. Everything does. But you have to remember that in slow motion, it's way slowed down. Those hands are moving really quick. So it's not like everything that they're doing is impacting the receiver or that it's always a hold on the defensive lineman or against the defensive lineman. It's just not legit. So Sam Laporta. And if you see anything in the chat that you want to, shout out there, Eric, just let me know. So okay. Sam Laporta on what the identity is in so many different ways to win in the game. He says the identity kind of changes week to week or every week. Some weeks you see guys with a bunch of catches, a bunch of carries. Other weeks, not so much. A selfless group here. That's a big word, selfless. And we are willing to do what's best for the team and what's best for the offense. There was a bunch of big guys today that stepped up for us, helped us win. That is a huge word this season. And you could almost put that word with the word that I chose at the very beginning of the year, evolution, where this team was going to evolve from and to, and where they have evolved now. It's stark difference from 2020 to 2021 and now 21 to 24. But selfless is another word you could put right with that. Every member of this team that we know of is selfless. They don't care about their stats. They don't care about the sacks. They don't care about the catches. They don't care about the yards or the touchdowns. The only thing they care about at the end of the day is that they have one more point on the board than their opponent. However they get there, they get there. So Sam Laporta identifying this and using that word selfless is huge. I think it is something that has been echoed through this locker room since day one. Eric?
Yeah. Selfless. That's exactly what this team is. There's no divas on this team. And, you know, I believe truly that if a player like Jamo went to just about any other team, he's going to have more of a Justin Jefferson type attitude or a Antonio Brown type attitude. But because he came here and they took that clay and they molded him, and he didn't want to go into that mold. He wanted to be the thug. He wanted to be the flashy guy. He wanted to be I'm good enough to just be the best there ever was because I have the physical talents. No. Dan Campbell said, stop. Nope, we're not doing that. You're going into this mold. And he's putting him into this mold, and he's starting to fit into it now. And you can see he's a totally different person because of it. And this team does not allow for people to not fit in the mold. If you don't fit in this mold for this team, you are not going to last. And that might be a reason why a few people that came during the season this year, we used them, but maybe they didn't fit in just quite correctly, and you're wondering why they left so quick. That might be why they left so quick.
So the last part of Laporta's quote is, it takes everything. It takes everybody. You're never down. You're never out. You've got to rise to the occasion. And I think that's a great statement by Sam Laporta. And I do want the thug of Jamison on the field. Absolutely. All day, every day. I need him to be that thug on the field where he's just out there being scrappy like he's been, because he was a huge reason in this game why Jahmyr Gibbs had the big game that he did, blocking downfield, doing everything he could to make sure that Jahmyr had an opening downfield, and he was a big part of that. So big shout out to Jamison this weekend.
Yeah, so what I meant by that was the gun stuff and the suspension stuff. That's what I meant by the thug stuff.
So Penei Sewell, and what it means to have home field advantage. It's always great advantage to have home field, especially these guys who come out and go crazy for us. The fans showed out last night and expecting nothing less in the playoffs. Thankful for all of them, and let's keep rolling. And then what he saw from the defense. He said the defense tonight, player of the game, all of them, game ball, all of them. The way that they were flying around, putting their bodies on the line at the end of the day, it's crazy. Again, Penei had a great game, obviously. But he's calling it the way he sees it, man. Without this defense in that game, probably don't win that game the way that we do. Maybe it does go to a shootout. If they play the way that they did against the 49ers, it's probably a much different meaning to Monday than Victory Monday for the Detroit Lions. So Penei recognizes game, and he recognizes where credit is due, and he wants every person from that defense to get a game ball. And I agree. What did you think, Eric?
Yeah, and one thing he talked about there in the beginning of his quote, the crowd. He talked about how electric it was and how loud it was. Listen, I don't know how it was where you were sitting, but where I was sitting, it got so loud when we were out on defense. And then right before the play, you just hear this giant swell, this thunderous swell of loud, everybody just cheering their absolute guts out. How we did not break how there's not a a post or a news article or something about us breaking the all-time sound record is beyond me, because that was louder than any stadium, any game I've ever been to. That was louder than the playoffs. I'm telling you, it was louder. It felt louder where I was sitting anyway, in that lower corner. Maybe it's just because of where I was sitting. I don't know. But to me, I don't know how we didn't break sound records the other night.
We might have. We don't know. We just don't know yet. All right, the last one I'm going to do is Alex Anzalone, simply because we're up against it for time, and I want to get to the biggest segment, which is Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. So, Alex, man, what a huge impact on this game. But this is what he had said on the comeback, being back in, on the team, playing in the game. His quote is, "Yeah, I think that just the volume of work Thursday and Friday, and even on Saturday, just making the decision to play, it wasn't necessarily a clear and cut thing for me. There are risks involved, and a refracture risks, but at the same time, it was kind of like what I talked to you guys about early in the week. Is it safe to play? Is it worth playing? And how do I feel? We collaboratively made the decision, and yeah, you tell me. You think so? Was it worth it?" That's what he's asking. Do you think it was worth it to play? That was his question. It was absolutely worth it for Alex to play in this game. And I'm glad that he didn't suffer any setbacks or any re-injuries or anything like that. It was crazy when I heard after the game that he played in all but one snap. Like, that was insanely courageous of him, but he said it from the beginning. He's coming back with fresh legs. It was his arm that was banged up. It wasn't his legs. It wasn't his brain. It wasn't his head. It wasn't how he thinks and plays about the game. It was just his arm. The biggest thing for Alex was when he went to tackle somebody, how was it going to feel? And was he going to be able to do it? I think he did a fine job. Matter of fact, one of the best players of the game on Sunday night. So he got a game ball by Dan Campbell. So what do you think about Alex's statement here and having him back on the team?
Yeah, I also saw a quote from him yesterday that said, if he's going to play, he's playing everything. He's not going half-ass. He is playing every play he can possibly play. Either he doesn't play at all or he's going full bore. And that's just I think the type of personality he is. He doesn't want to come out and be on a pitch count. Right. I mean, he wants to come out and affect the game. And we didn't know how good we had it this year on defense until we did start losing Hutch and Anzalone and Davenport and all these other players, and Carlton Davis. We just didn't know how spoiled we were.
Definitely spoiled. But, the other thing is, a lot of people were not high on Alex this season or last season. Nope. And thought that we needed, wasn't it Tony that said our linebacker group was going to be the worst group this season? Yep. And clearly it's been one of the better groups, that we've had in recent seasons. But you could clearly see a drop off. I mean, the first game that Alex was out, Jack did a great job. The second game, Jack did a great job. Once we started to lose more and more players, it kind of just became like, all right, this is a bit overwhelming. And we're missing a lot of guys. We've got a ton of holes. Now we just have to play, the best that we can. And I'm not saying that they couldn't get it done, because clearly they got it done. They've only lost 2 games this season. 15-2 is incredible when you think about where this team started, the thoughts about this team from many fans or, the pundits, the media. They didn't give a lot of credit to what this team was going to be. I think the early over-under for wins was somewhere around 9.5 or 10.5 for the Lions this season. Was it 10.5?
Yep.
10.5. And they finished 4.5 games above that. That's insanely good, right? All right, so I'll come back to those quotes if we get a little bit more time. Let's take a quick 30 seconds here so I can get my voice back. And we're going to jump into a quick over-under, and then we're going to get into Jared Goff's post-game interview, and then right into Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Be right back here in 30 seconds.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights.
Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from UperLights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uperlights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit UperLights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from UperLights.com.
Okay, Eric, you have a quick over-under. Let's get to just a few of them real quick, and then I want to jump into the bigger segment, which is Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, and what today's topic is really about, with Sheila Hamp. Is she going to step up and try to save these coaches from exiting, this upcoming season? My short answer is I don't think that she can. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk it out a little bit and see what makes sense here. But all right, over under. What do you got, Eric?
All right, so I have 4 real quick questions. I'm going to give you 4 awards, and I'm going to give you one person's name that I think is going to win, and then you're going to tell me whether that's an overreaction or an underreaction. All right, we're going to do this one first. Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels will win Rookie of the Year.
Who's up against him right now?
Bo Nix and Caleb Williams.
Definitely not Caleb.
I think it's him and Bo Nix. I think that's the two.
I think Jaden's he would be a front runner, in my opinion. I mean, you know that from the very beginning of this season, I didn't like Caleb Williams. I said that Jaden Daniels was the number 1 overall pick for me, and that the Bears are making a huge, disastrous mistake by taking Caleb Williams. There was just too much wrong with this guy on the surface level, from too much drama, that Jaden Daniels, the quiet underdog, apparently had an elbow issue. And I said, look, this guy's going to come in and set the world on fire. And he did. What an amazing season for Jaden Daniels. I think that he would deserve it. I apologize. I haven't stayed up on, the award winners, so I don't know who's even in the contest for Rookie of the Year.
All right. Now we're up next. Defensive Player of the Year. Kirby Joseph will win Defensive Player of the Year.
No.
He's plus 3,000 right now.
Yeah, he won't. He won't, simply because of that Matthew Stafford quote. If he's not going to make the Pro Bowl, he's not going to make Defensive Player of the Year. And honestly, the last time a safety has won, I think it was, it might have been Palomalu, Ed Reed. You'd have to go back a ways to see where a safety won. It's been a minute.
Yep, it was Palomalu. Now, I think that Kirby's going to end up being an All-Pro, kind of like last year when St. Brown didn't get into the Pro Bowl, but he got the All-Pro instead.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen with Kirby.
I hope so. I mean, again, it's just the way that it's voted on, right? And I think that the AP are jaded. Give me 10 seconds here, okay?
Okay. And I truly believe that Kirby was the best defensive player in the year this year. There was no edge rusher that had 20 sacks. I think 11 and a half sacks was the most, and that was TJ Watt. There's been no real front runner winner for this award this year. That's why I wanted to throw Kirby's name in the hat, just because he led the league in interceptions. He led the league in PFF grade. He led the league in yards against, touchdowns against, a whole bunch of different categories. He was the front runner. So that's why I put Kirby in that bucket.
There's a name that I forgot about, and that's Brock Bowers. So yep. Brock Bowers, as far as Rookie of the Year, I mean, he just smashed Mike Ditka's record that has stood, I think, since 1967.
Mm-hmm.
He should be up there, but I don't know that.
But his team was awful.
Yeah, I get it, but it's an individual award, right? So yep. It's about what that individual has done for the team. It's the same thing, same argument that I've made for Jared Goff, and why I still believe he is the MVP. It's not from my bias. That's an unbiased view of what he's done for his team, not just this year, but the last many years. He's deserved that award, just like Dan Campbell has deserved the award for Head Coach of the Year, and he keeps on getting shunned away from the voting. So I mean, you've got multiple receivers I forgot that are probably up for this award too, like Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. It's a good class, and each one of these players have had excellent seasons, but I still like Jaden Daniels. I mean, he led his team to the playoffs. So anyway, your third question here.
All right. So offensive player of the year will be Jahmyr Gibbs with 20 touchdowns and 1,900 scrimmage yards.
Does Saquon Barkley win the MVP?
I don't know. It's going to be him and Saquon for offensive player of the year.
I think the bigger market in Philly is probably going to eat into Jahmyr Gibbs voting. But does he deserve it? I mean, let's think about this for a second. This guy has been in a duo system split between him and Montgomery all up until the last few weeks. And he's done what he's done. Imagine if he had 100% or even 85 or 90% of the carries or snaps. Imagine where he would be. I mean, he would be real close to 2,000 yards, if not over. And what he's done in the past game this season, I mean, 20-plus touchdowns this year is where he's going to be. So
he'd have 30 touchdowns if you give him David Montgomery's 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's insane what he's done. And this is his second year in the season. Just wait till you see where he's going to be next year. But here's the key fact that I want to throw out about Jahmyr Gibbs. Durability.
Yep.
I never would have thought that Jahmyr Gibbs was this durable. He stood in there and took a shot from one of the best linebackers in the league. Clean. Great hit. Drove into the ground. Yeah, he stayed down for 10, 15 seconds. Got up and was fine. The guy has been smacked so much this season. And he gets up and he's fine. He goes and plays. Jahmyr Gibbs, man, I did not expect for him to be this durable, but excellent running back for the Lions. Love it.
All right. And this is my last one. Coach of the year will not be Kevin O'Connell because MCDC beat him twice.
Has to be. Those are the only two coaches that were up for this award, in my opinion.
Yep.
It was KLC and it was Dan Campbell, and I put out last week in a video that, who wins this award is based on week 18. Dan Campbell showed up and shut out KOC with the help of Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. But it starts with Dan Campbell, right? Dan Campbell's a leader of these men, and he did it the right way. Dan Campbell has to win this award running away. And if he doesn't, then anybody that's voting on this award that votes differently should have their ability ripped away. That's just my 2 cents, because the AP is jaded. Big time.
Mm-hmm.
Big time. They are jaded. All right, Jared Goff. He had a lot to say, and then we're going to get into Aaron Glenn. I know I keep on pushing it down, but I have to get through this one on Jared Goff here. All right, here we go. This is Jared Goff. Number one, listen to what the fans are doing after the game, and then we're going to roll into his interview real quick. We're going to spend less than 3 minutes on this, and we're done. Here we go.
Congratulations.
MVP.
I like the hat, too.
Jared, we got to ask you, brother.
Going all right.
We got to ask you. They're calling your name. They're calling you MVP.
Let's go. No, we got a great squad, man. We really do. I'm lucky to be a part of it, and it's amazing.
Congratulations. I like the hat, too.
Jared, we got to ask you, brother.
Going all right.
We got to ask you. They're calling your name. They're calling you MVP.
Let's go.
All right, so it kind of gets a little loud, so I'm gonna stop it there. But let's listen to Goff's interview real quick, and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Talks about Dan Campbell.
When we see the locker room after you guys get a win, and I get to see you and Coach Campbell and that relationship that you have, how has pairing with him impacted your life?
He's been incredible. He's you're gonna make me. Sorry, he's been incredible. He's breathed life into me from the moment I got here, and it's been a lot of fun to win with him and to have a guy like that believe not only in me but believe in the whole team. At every point of this journey over the last 4 years, he's believed in us, and it's been fun to play for him.
So I can't commend Jared Goff enough. I mean, for being in a vulnerable situation, right? He's talking about Dan Campbell, a leader of men, but the fact that Jared Goff stands up and he says that his head coach has breathed life into him. That's pretty powerful. Not many people can affect a person in that way, but for you to find that in somebody that, one, you're not related to, right? It's not your wife or your husband. it is a head coach of a team that has breathed life back into Jared Goff from where he came. Sean McVay throwing this guy in a dumpster, right? And completely trashing this guy. And the media takes hold of that, completely trashes Jared Goff, doesn't give him a chance in hell, right? Everyone's calling him a bridge quarterback. And he comes to Detroit, puts this team in this city on his shoulders, and by the third season has us competing for what could have been our first Super Bowl appearance, right? That obviously ended in a bad way. It wasn't his fault. And then the second, he backs it up the next season where Dan Campbell comes to the mic and says, we're not going to make it back to this. It's extremely hard to come back again. And we all understood what he was saying in the heat of the moment. Jared Goff just led this team to 15-2, a 1 seed, back-to-back NFC North champions. And here's his quote. He says, he's been incredible. You're going to make me emotional. But Goff said, he said all this with a quivering voice. Sorry, he's been incredible. He's breathed life into me from the moment I got here. And it's been a lot of fun to win with him and to have a guy like that believe not only in me, but believe in the whole team. At every point of this journey, over the last 4 years, he's believed in us, and it's been fun to play for him. Just a powerful statement, not only, about his head coach, but about his career. Jared Goff's career has been defined by other people, and he's now defining his career by his actions and what he does on the field. And it's been enlightened by his head coach and the players that are around him, that he's also led into battle each and every Sunday, and they come out winners because of Jared Goff. He's a big part of the reason why this team is winning. A lot of people think he's a quiet, misunderstood individual. I don't think that at all. I think he's quiet by nature, but he's definitely leading with a big voice for the Detroit Lions. So big shout out to Jared Goff, man, and a bigger shout out to Dan Campbell for resurrecting this guy's career, which, not many times, Eric, do we see quarterbacks go to a different team and do what Jared Goff has done. He has broken all sorts of records. I can't even count how many franchise records, NFL records he has broken, this season alone. But what he's been able to do with this team the last 2 seasons is undeniable. The reason why I believe he deserves an MVP this year. He's probably not going to get it, but I would give it to him time and time again, man. What is your thought process here on this quote and the last season with Jared Goff?
I'll tell you this. In my mind, there is no other MVP. It's Jared Goff the entire way. He threw a perfect game. He had 5 interceptions in a game and came back to win. Never done by any other, those two things together. There's never been a season with a quarterback that's done that before. His percentages were off the charts. He was having games with QBRs that were just unseen for so many games put together. His numbers that he has this year, if you take this and put it in any year from 5-10 years ago, he's probably the MVP. He just happens to be playing in a year where there's a couple other people that are right up there with him, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Those two guys, man, they have even more touchdowns because of their rushing ability. And I know Lamar has more yards, but Lamar's got a 12-win team, 12-5. And Lamar's not taking a team from a dumpster fire 3-13-1 to what it is now in just 3 seasons. That's why I believe that Jared Goff should be the MVP. It's because of what he's taken this team from to what it is now. And you can't tell me if you take Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen off of that team in week 6 for 4 weeks and put them back in.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Goff. You take him out for 4 weeks and put him back in, and you see which one of those teams would have done the best without their quarterback. I guarantee those other teams would have done better without their quarterback than what the Lions would have done.
I would have to agree. And I see that we have a troll in the chat, so let me just address this. Jared Goff is not just a decent quarterback in a phenomenal situation. I mean, let's be real for a moment here. How many 4th-round selected receivers named Amon-Ra St. Brown would be Amon-Ra St. Brown right now? Do you think that Amon-Ra St. Brown would be the player that he is today on any other team with any other quarterback? I think that there's very few quarterbacks in the NFL that can take Amon-Ra St. Brown and develop him to the way that he's been developed. I think that took scheme. I think that took a quarterback that does very well in a situation that Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell and Jared Goff all put together for this offense. Now, I'm not saying that Amon-Ra wouldn't have been who he is completely, but I don't think that Amon-Ra rises to the occasion that he has. I mean, he's got the work ethic, right? I mean, he is the hardest working receiver in the league, bar none. But it still takes 2 to tango. Jared Goff is partially responsible for the rise of Amon-Ra St. Brown. No pun intended. Same thing to be said for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and, Josh Reynolds or Tim Patrick's resurgence this year, even though it's been, a little bit. But J-Mo, you guys, a lot of people kept saying that Jared Goff couldn't throw to J-Mo. That J-Mo was too good, too fast for Jared Goff. Jared Goff doesn't have an arm. Jared Goff just overthrew J-Mo in this last game.
Yeah.
And he's clearly been throwing it to him in stride. It just took them a minute to communicate on the field. It took them a minute to have a little bit of chemistry. And once they have the chemistry, you're going to see how Jared Goff is completely taken off and help that kid develop too. J-Mo's not going to do everything that he's doing without Jared Goff. Again, it takes a special quarterback to be able to work with all of these receivers. Jared Goff is putting the ball in 5 or 6 receivers' hands a week. Not many quarterbacks do that. It's not easy to do that. Jared Goff surveys and dices up defenses quicker than anybody in the NFL from my position. That's my take on it. I've never seen a quarterback do what he does and read those progressions as fast as he is and getting the ball out in under 2.7 seconds against some of the best defenses in the league. Jared Goff is just not some medium quarterback. He's an elite quarterback in the NFL, and he's doing what he's doing because, he has good pieces around him. He has great pieces around him. But it still takes a great quarterback to do those things. So, okay, let's see. Who's the worst quarterback in the league right now? Who do you think?
Caleb Williams.
Well, I mean, that's a biased decision. I mean, I think that he's got some real talent. But let's just say, okay, if you took Caleb Williams and put him on this team this year, does this team do what it does this season?
Nope.
I don't think so. I mean, I've watched Caleb spray the ball everywhere with wide open receivers. And Jared Goff is putting this ball in the tightest windows possible. His tight window percentage is insanely good. I'm sick of hearing people say that Jared Goff is a product of an offensive line. Jared Goff is a product of his weapons. Jared Goff is a product of Ben Johnson. Look around the league. Look at how many other quarterbacks have a great offensive line, great weapons, and they're not doing anything with it. Caleb Williams, now that you've mentioned him, he should be one of the guys that you could talk about in that same situation. He's got great wide receivers, a pretty good running back, decent offensive line, but plenty of weapons to do something with, and he couldn't do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's more that I could talk about, but
yeah, Caleb was supposed to have the absolute best situation that any number one overall pick quarterback has ever had to walk into in year one.
Right.
He was supposed to have everything ready for him, and off you go. And we all called it that it wasn't going to happen. And we all said that his offensive line was trash, and it ended up being trash.
Yeah. All right. JG is my man for MVP. I know it's going to be tough for him to get. Dan Campbell's obviously my vote for head coach of the year. And that's not just being biased. If I had an AP vote, I would vote the right way. I mean, I would look constructively at what players and coaches actually deserve the award for what they've done for their team. Mm-hmm. And we've heard it.
Do they do a coordinator of the year?
Yeah, I think there's an assistant coach of the year or something like that. So,
okay.
There's awards for that too. I think Swartz got it last season, I think, for DC.
Oh, okay.
So, all right,
well,
let's take a move here into the second hour onto what today is really about, and that is Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. There's been a lot of conversation going on, and the clock is now started because as of this week, there's going to be some interviews. So last season, I'll start with last season. 8 teams were hiring a new coach. And Ben Johnson put his hat for a few, right? I mean, he had a few interviews. We'll talk about which ones and maybe why he decided to pull back. But this year, so far, there are 5 teams: the Chicago Bears, the New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets, the New England Patriots, and the Jacksonville Jaguars that have head coaching positions. Now, the rules to interview for new head coaches are pretty simple. So the Sunday night outcome really had a big impact on the timing for some of these interviews. And since the Lions won and clinched the number 1 seed in a first-round bye, the teams can request to virtually interview coaches on the staff starting 3 days after the game. Today's Tuesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's tomorrow.
Yep.
So beginning tomorrow is when virtual interviews can begin. Johnson and Glenn are supposed to be able to do them tomorrow. I don't know if they are doing them tomorrow. Well, we'll find out here in just a minute. But Vikings coordinators, on the other hand, such as defensive coordinator Brian Flores, he cannot interview with the team until 3 days after the wild card round ends. So Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are actually going to get first crack and make a first impression on some of these teams. Now, teams can only conduct virtual interviews with prospective coaches until the day after the divisional round ends, which is January 20th, when in-person interviews can begin. Now, the second interviews can begin on January 27th, one day after the conference championships. The week off before the Super Bowl in New Orleans is when that'll take place. These rules only apply to coaches on current playoff teams. Now, it should be noted that Ben Johnson has been around the block with coaching interviews and vacancies last season, right? Last year, he interviewed with the Washington Commanders, the Seahawks, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Chargers. Now, he was considered the favorite for Washington. And then that whole debacle happened, right? They're in the air. Washington's in the air. They're on their way to Detroit to pick up Ben. And Ben somehow contacts him and says, yeah, just turn the plane around. I'm not doing it. A lot was said about this. Ben was thrown under the bus, by a lot of people. Really looked bad. So he kind of set fire to really see what he could potentially be or do in Detroit. Where Ben Johnson said this: I think there's a burning desire in every man to find out what he's made of and push the limits and see if he's got what it takes. He said this on December 19th. And so, yeah, there's a fire there. And now when the timing is, I don't know when that'll be, but there's certainly a fire there. Ben Johnson walked away from what should have been a locked up head coaching opportunity last season to put that fire to the test, to return to Detroit and to do exactly what he's doing today, which is helping lead this team back to where they were last season and taking it one step or 2 steps further to win a Super Bowl. Now, NFL Network reported on Monday that the Chicago Bears had both requested to interview Johnson and Glenn for their head coaching position. The Athletic reported that while the New York Jets were not expected to put in a formal request to interview Johnson, that Aaron Glenn is someone, quote, they expected to have interest in, end quote. And then it was right after that the Jets reported to want to interview Glenn. So Glenn is now reported to have opportunities with the Saints, the Jets, and the Bears. Now, Aaron Glenn interviewed with the Commanders, the Chargers, the Falcons, and the Titans in 2023. He has direct connections with 2 of the teams with openings this cycle, the Jets and the New Orleans Saints. He spent the first 8 seasons of his 15-year career as a player with the Jets and was the Saints defensive coordinator from 2016 to 2020. And I think he also finished his career, around 08-ish with the Saints, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So with all of this going on, now, obviously, let me pull up the most recent Let me pull up the most recent coaching schedule here. I don't know why I have that missing. Eric, if you can look for the coaching schedule, see who Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are slated to interview with.
Okay.
I thought I had it, but I don't know why I don't. So I'll keep going here. So Aaron Glenn, he had an incredible endorsement by Sean Payton. And it's very simple, right? This is a very simple endorsement by Sean Payton because of what Aaron Glenn put on display on Sunday night. Here was Sean Payton's quote about Aaron Glenn. He says, "You watched the game last night. The best interview that Aaron Glenn could ever give was for 3 hours last night. There's not one thing he can say or do to a GM or an owner that's more impressive than that game." Sean Payton's exactly right. You know, you watch what Aaron Glenn has been through this entire season, you know, losing as many players as he's lost and helping a team get to 15-2. Who would have ever thought that the Lions would finish 15-2 on a defensive performance after missing so many critical players? Aiden Hutchinson, Davenport, Davis, Barnes, just to mention a few. Ali McNeil, all of your backups, Pecco, Pat O'Connor goes out early. Who would have thought that this defense would have been able to do what it did last night? And Aaron Glenn, just like Sean Payton is saying, that performance in the NFC North clincher was such an impressive outing, considering how banged up this team has been and how well the offense of Minnesota Vikings really is. I mean, that's a phenomenal team over there. And how well they've been playing was not expected to be shut down by the Lions on Sunday night. So despite all that, the Vikings were held to a season-low 9 points in just 262 yards of total offense. It was their second lowest of the season. And it's worth noting that Sean Payton has plenty of experience with Aaron Glenn. So it was 2008 that Glenn played 4 games for the New Orleans Saints in what would be his final season in the NFL. And then nearly a decade later, in 2016 through 2020, he was a defensive backs coach, won 56 games, the most by any NFC team in that stretch. So Sean Payton is extremely familiar with Aaron Glenn, and I think that he is a perfect fit for the New Orleans Saints. I think that Ben Johnson is probably a perfect fit for Jacksonville or possibly the Patriots. I hope that Ben Johnson, and not that they have to do this, but I hope that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn have enough respect for Dan Campbell and the Lions to get out of the NFC North. And I also hope that they don't just divulge a bunch of information to the Chicago Bears, and I don't expect them to do that. So with all of this, the biggest question I have, and the thing that it's been circling the internet here, and it's popped up in our chat, is Sheila Hamp going to give Ben Johnson head coach type money to stay in Detroit? Is she willing to pay out the nose to keep these guys around? Before I give my answer, Eric, with all that stuff said, what do you think about, one, if Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson were to end up in Chicago and how impactful that would be? And two, is one or both of these guys going to leave this season?
I think both leave if and when we win the Super Bowl. If we don't win the Super Bowl, I think that Ben Johnson will be back because I think Sheila will open the bag. And she's going to keep him here, give him a little bit of a raise. I don't know if they can pay him head coach money, but they can keep him around for another year or two and see if they can run it back. Aaron Glenn, on the other hand, I think is more easily replaced. There's some people out there on the head coaching circuit, Robert Saleh and a few other guys that could come in, or somebody from within, Calvin Shepard, someone that you can take and bring them in. already knows your system and can maybe put a few tweaks of their own in. And in my opinion, I would think that Glenn would be the better fit for Chicago than Ben Johnson. But I just don't see Ben taking that Chicago job. I think there's too much dysfunction for him with Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles just seems like he's throwing spaghetti against the wall and waiting for something to stick.
I would agree. I think that, and I've spoke about this before, I think that Ben Johnson wants a situation where, and he's gone on record, I think, saying this, can't remember the exact quote here, but I mean, he wants to see if these teams are going to hold themselves accountable, right? He wants to see if the owner and the GM are going to hold themselves accountable and put it out there that they know and they understand what their problems are, what their deficiencies are, and if they're willing to fix it. If you go to a team that isn't willing to fix it, if they're not willing to throw money at it, if they're not willing to scrap it all to the mud, right, and rebuild everything stick by stick like the Lions did, I think that is the best way to fix a team, especially a team that maybe has some resources, right, as far as draft capital. If they don't have much draft capital, it's going to be really hard. So how do you do that? You're going to have to start getting rid of really good players, and you're going to have to rebuild everything from the ground up and try to collectively, manufacture some resources by trading away players, doing whatever you can that way. So I think that it's going to be a situation that Ben looks at, that he knows that he's going to have the ability to get players through the draft and understands the GM that he's going to be working with and the head coach that he's going to be, or the GM and the owner that he's working with both understand what their deficiencies are, and they're both willing to go out there and make the changes necessary, because Sheila Hamp started the blueprint. She is the one that put it all out there, that this is how you rebuild the team. You go in, you hire really great assistants, right? Really good consultants. You bring them in and you scrap everything, but you got to have a plan. And that plan that you have to stick with, like Dan Campbell and Sheila came, to the mic in 2022, have said, look, we've got a process. We're going to continue to follow and trust in the process. And if you don't do that, your team's not going to be where it is today. And if you can't get through 4 seasons with the same head coach and the same offensive coordinator and the same defensive coordinator, you're in trouble, because it is difficult to keep players around when you're constantly switching things up. And it's also really hard on players. Some players don't fit those molds, right? Not each mold in the NFL is able to go from player to player. Sometimes they just don't fit in a 4-3 or a 3-4 scheme. Maybe they only fit in a 4-3. Maybe they only fit in a 3-4. Maybe they don't do well in the West Coast offense. There's so many different variables to this, and I think that Ben Johnson, and I'm not saying Aaron Glenn doesn't want the same things, because I'm sure he does, but we know that Ben Johnson wants to know that he can get things done the right way. And I think that's why he's kind of pulled back a little bit. To your point about if the Lions don't win the Super Bowl, would Ben be back, and can Sheila open up the book? So that's the biggest thing that I want to address this morning. Is Sheila going to try to pay her way to keeping one or both of these guys? I think realistically, I mean, a lot of people think that money solves everything. It doesn't. It doesn't solve everything.
Mm-mm.
To be a head coach in the NFL is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and sometimes you only get it once. To even get to that point of your career that you have an opportunity to be a head coach, that's incredible. So why wouldn't you take the opportunity if, for instance, let's compare money-wise, right? We have no idea how much Ben is getting paid right now. But if the average annual head coaching salary is projected to be somewhere between $5 and $18 million, it's anywhere in between that. And here's what we do know. Sean Payton has a salary of $18 million. Mike Tomlin, $16 million. Jim Harbaugh, $16 million. Sean McVay, $15 million. Kyle Shanahan, $14 million. Dan Campbell, $11 million. Sean McDermott, $11 million. Mike McDonald, $9 million. So there's the question. Are you willing to pay Ben Johnson $9+ million a year to stay? Now, none of that money counts towards, the cap. It's just all overhead. It has nothing to do with the team and what they're able to do in the draft or, free agency or anything like that. Are you willing to pay That's the question that Sheila has to answer. But I don't think that there's enough money to pay Ben Johnson to stay. Because I think that if he wanted to stay for money, it's for all the wrong reasons. That would mean for him that he doesn't have any respect for his job or himself or the NFL. I think that Ben Johnson has way too much respect for himself to say, yeah, I'll stay for a big pay bump. I think that kind of sends the wrong message, especially to future teams that maybe he's going to be able to coach. I think for him, it's about the game. It's about winning. It's about the art form of being in the NFL and what it takes, the work that they have to put in. I mean, of course, you want to be rewarded for what you do, right? Of course, you would love to be the highest paid coach. Who wouldn't? Everybody in this chat right now wants more money in their paycheck every week. Who doesn't? But I think for Ben Johnson, it would be sending the wrong message, and I don't think that that's why he's staying, if he did. If Sheila did say, here's an extra $5 million for 1 year, great. If he stays, I don't think it's because of money. I think it's because the job is not finished. If they finish the job this season, there's nothing else for him to do besides win another one. Now, Aaron Glenn, on the other hand, I think he's gone. I don't think it matters. I think that if he gets an opportunity, he's out. I don't think money matters to him at all. I think that he's done enough in this league, and I think that, he's been poo-pooed by a lot of Lions fans over the last 4 seasons. And now they want to jump to the other side of the fence where I've been this last 4 years, saying that Aaron Glenn was going to be fine. Just Aaron, the draft had to get Aaron Glenn the resources that he needed. And I think that Aaron Glenn is well on his way to becoming a head coach for the New Orleans Saints in 2025. So that's my take on this whole thing. So will Sheila pay these guys to stay? I don't even think it's possible. I don't think money can solve this situation. I think that if they stay, it would have to be because they love the fans, they love the city, they love the team, they love the guys, they love working for Dan Campbell, and maybe they've won a Super Bowl with the Lions and they want to win another one. Maybe that's why they stay. I don't think it's because of money, and that's why I wanted to talk about this morning, because I've seen it everywhere. People just think you can pay these guys to stay. That's not going to happen. Knowing that Dan Campbell only makes $11 million, so I mean he's in the upper echelon of coaches right now. That's pretty cool, man. He's in the upper third of coaches getting paid. I don't think that you're going to pay Ben Johnson $11 million. Why would you pay an assistant more than, or an OC more than a head coach? So that's my take, Eric. What's yours?
Yeah, I just think that for right now, it's all speculation. I do think that Aaron Glenn is going to get more interviews than Ben Johnson's going to, because there are 2 teams that are going to go hard after Aaron Glenn, and that is the Saints and the Jets. Those are 2 teams that Aaron Glenn either formerly worked for or played for. And I believe those 2 teams want a defensive-minded head coach. The only problem with the Jets is what are they going to do at quarterback? But I think they'll work that out in the draft. They might draft someone for their new head coach. He has his new quarterback, and off you go. That is where I see Aaron Glenn going, is either to the Jets or the Saints. Most likely the Saints. I think he's the front runner for the Saints job right now already. So they've been putting out odds on who's going to go to what job and what job is going to get which coach. And right now, Aaron Glenn is the front runner for the Saints job. Where contrast, I think Ben Johnson is going to get some interviews. He's going to get the Bears. He's going to get the Patriots. He's going to get Jacksonville. And there might be 1 or 2 more sprinkled in there. New England. But I think New England is going to go after the ex-player there that was the Titans head coach, Vrabel. I think that job was handpicked for Vrabel. That's why they got rid of Gerard Mayo. So I think the New England job is all but sealed and dealed for Mike Vrabel. So that takes that one out. So you have the Chicago Bears, the Jacksonville Jaguars as the 2 teams that are going to be the ones that really, really want Ben Johnson. And if you're Ben Johnson, do you want to go to Chicago where you have a bunch of drama, a GM that you're not sure whether he's going to make it through his contract, whether he's going to get fired or not, And is he going to be able to fit in with you lockstep on what you want to draft? Let's say Ben Johnson knows, hey, for the next 3 drafts, we need to get 2 linemen in every draft, 2 offensive linemen in every draft for the next 3 drafts. We need 2 defensive linemen every draft for the next 3 drafts. Do you have a GM that is going to be in lockstep with you to do it? So in my opinion, I truly believe that Ben Johnson's going to want to go to a better situation than the Bears. He's going to want to go to Florida, no taxes, sunny. His kids and his family are going to like that a lot better than cold, snowy Chicago. I truly believe he goes to Jacksonville. And I think that is the opportunity he's been waiting for. And to see that they have an owner that did not fire their coach during the season. They had every opportunity to fire Doug Peterson right after that Lions game, after that 52-14 debacle. Every opportunity everyone thought that Doug Peterson was not going to make it through the week, but he didn't. He held on to his coach till the end of the year. He reassessed and then made the decision. So when you have ownership that's willing to give you a chance to try to turn it around if you're having a bad season and prove that you can get through, that's the kind of ownership you want. You don't want somebody that's going to fire their coach after the Thanksgiving Day game because you had a lapse in judgment with your rookie quarterback.
Yeah. I could agree with all that. I absolutely can. I think that Chicago is a wasteland right now. I think that Ryan Poles needs to go. I think that he's absolutely made a lot of mistakes in Chicago. I've been on it from the very beginning that you can't buy a team. You can, right? I mean, you can. Let's just say you want to give all of the best players in the league, a $3 million contract or whatever it is to stay under the cap rate. Yeah, if they all want to come to your team and you want to put together some sort of an all-star team to make a run at, 5 or 6 Super Bowls in a row, you could probably do that. Would all these players do that? No, because at any moment they can get hurt. At any moment their career could be done. They want to get paid. So in order to bring high caliber players in my opinion, it starts in the draft, and it's exactly why I've been in lockstep, to use your word, with Brad Holmes, because the guy has been doing it right from the very beginning. Now, a lot of fans maybe didn't agree with what Brad Holmes was doing, but now they see the fruits of his labor. Now they see what it means to build a team. Well, I mean, build an organization from the mud, but then to build the team from the draft forward. It took 4 drafts for us to really build a solid team with incredible depth. Last year, we were very close. Now, in the 5th season, I mean, it's only going to get better and better and better from here on out because we actually have built the depth. Chicago doesn't have any depth. They don't even have an offensive line. They brought in a bunch of high-paid players expecting to play good, and they don't. But building a team, the right way, like Brad Holmes has done, I think that's what both of these guys, Ben and Aaron Glenn, are capable of doing. I think that they have the wherewithal and the acumen. Obviously, they have the football knowledge to do it the right way. And they want to be matched up with a GM that probably has similar vision to them. I think that they're going to try to approach and copy the blueprint of what the Lions have done and bring it into this team and say, look, this is what we did. This is why we were successful. And this is what we need to do here. Are you willing to do that? Mm-hmm. And if you're not, I'm not the guy for you because I want to do it the right way. It's going to be very difficult. I mean, if you're firing a coach, it's not like you're walking into a situation where the locker room is in good shape, right? You've got the right players. The players may not buy in to your coaching style. They may not buy into the scheme that you want to run. So it takes a couple of years of attrition to coordinate, who's going to be the leaders of this group, who's willing to stick around, who fits the mold. You have to learn these players, right, through practice. Do they even fit your style? Some of them you're going to have to hang on to just because of cap considerations. But I think that both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn want to do it the right way. I don't see anything different out of them. And I think that they're both going to be great at what they do. I just hope that they get a really good opportunity that makes sense for them. And I hope it's not Chicago. I really hope. And I can't imagine that either one of those guys want to go there. Not right now. If they were probably affirmed that Ryan Poles was going to be replaced and that the coach could pick the GM, which doesn't happen, then yeah, I think that would be great. Or if, there was something that was agreed to that they were going to find a new GM quickly, then yeah, I think that would probably work. I don't think Ryan Poles is the answer. I think he's totally screwed up Chicago.
Yep. So I got two quick things. Brad Holmes. Last year, he was the GM of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to get it back to back.
That'd be great. He deserves it. I mean, so that's a bigger question, right? And we haven't even talked about this recently. Maybe we'll talk more about it tomorrow, but what the hell? Brad Holmes. Everyone's talking about Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
Before I get on to Brad Holmes, there was a question in the chat. Someone was asking, well, who's going to replace these guys?
Yep.
Okay, so let's start there. My replacement for Aaron Glenn is Terrell Williams.
Yep.
I've been saying it for a while. I think that Aaron Glenn is doing what he's doing this season because when Terrell Williams was brought in, I think not only was he brought in to give Aaron Glenn a cushion that if he was going to leave, now we've got a really intelligent guy that knows the defensive line better than anybody in the league. Brad and Dan Campbell both said that. But you look at what this defensive line has done this year. It's revolutionized what our defense has been. And we didn't do it with a bunch of new guys. Right? We brought in Davenport, which actually Davenport would have been perfect had he not had his arm, or the tricep ripped off. But Davenport was actually playing really well. And you look at what he's done with Levi, with Pascal, Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, Aleem, you name it. He revolutionized the front, line of this defense. And even the linebacker play, I mean, it's great when they're all healthy. When you're missing a lot of pieces, yeah, it kind of got screwed up a little bit. But he revolutionized this defense. And I think that a big reason why Aaron Glenn has had a ton of success this year is because of the working relationship that he's had with Terrell Williams and what Terrell Williams has brought to the table. If there's somebody that I want to overpay, it's Terrell Williams. That's the guy that I want to keep in town. That's the guy that I would want to be my defensive coordinator. I've heard of, Shepard's name, Deshea Townsend. I mean, look, I get it. They're great at what they do. Nobody has the experience that Terrell Williams does. Nobody. This guy's been around for 20 plus years as a coach, defensive lines. That's pretty much what he's done his entire career. That is a guy that you want to be a defensive coordinator. Somebody that loves, eats, and breathes defense. And I mean, I don't think that the stats lie. I mean, you look at this last game. How do you get to Darnold 33 times, over 56% of snaps, with a banged up defensive line? It's Deshea Townsend and Aaron Glenn. Or, I'm sorry, it's Terrell Williams and Aaron Glenn. That's how. So Terrell Williams is my replacement. As far as offensive coordinator, I don't know that we have a replacement on the team right now. I know that they've been grooming, what's his name, Tanner Engstrand.
Yep.
I think they've been grooming him. I don't know that he's the answer, but maybe Randall L.
So I was watching a podcast last night, and they were talking about Ben Johnson going to the Jaguars and how it was a perfect fit for him. And he is going to take our QB coach, Mark Brunell, and have him be his offensive coordinator.
Mark Brunell to be the OC?
Yep, in Jacksonville. Because he's allowed to take so many people with him if it's a bump up for the person he's taking.
Yeah, I would hate to see a bunch of guys leave. I don't think that a lot of guys want to leave the Detroit Lions right now. I think that Mark Brunell has an incredible relationship with Jared Goff. I don't think that he leaves. I think that you make, an opportunity for Mark Brunell. So this is the thing. Does Mark Brunell even want to be an offensive coordinator?
He said he doesn't.
Yeah, and the same thing with Dave Phipp, right? Like Dave Phipp says, I don't want to do anything else but what I'm doing. Yep. I don't want to be an OC. I don't want to be a DC. I don't want to be anything but what I'm doing. So I think that there's, some respect that you got to put on these guys, like with where they want to be in life. And they don't want to graduate. They don't want to go anywhere else. Sometimes they love what they do. And it's hard to replace what you love to do. And taking on more responsibility oftentimes means less time with family. And maybe some guys aren't willing to give that up. I'd say a lot of guys probably aren't. And Mark Brunell's kind of older, right? Does he really want to? I would say give him an opportunity in Detroit, but then again, I don't know that he really wants to do that. Do you have any other guys for Detroit that you're thinking for OC or DC?
Calvin Shepard. So I think if AG leaves, I think he would take Calvin Shepard with him.
I'm talking about for the Lions.
Yeah. Well, even Dan Campbell has talked about Calvin Shepard and how he deserves to be a DC. He has come out and talked about it on multiple occasions that they are grooming Calvin Shepard. He's one of the ones that goes to those meetings that they have once a week. So Dan Campbell once a week has a meeting with assistants, and he is grooming players to be head coaches. And that is specifically what they're doing. And they have certain guys that go to these meetings that want to get a bump up. They want to take the next step up. So most of the time, it's not a linebacker coach and you go straight to being a head coach. That just doesn't happen. Usually you go from being, scout team to linebacker coach to defensive coordinator and then to a head coach. So you got to take a few of these steps to get along the way. So all the people that want to move up and go through these steps, Dan Campbell has meetings once a week to help them move up. And what a great way to do it, right? When I worked at the casino, I always said you should always be grooming the next person to take over for your job. Because if you don't, then when something happens to you, it's all hell breaks loose. And no one knows what they're doing. And you can't just keep all the keys to the kingdom in your pocket. You have to, it breeds dissension when you're not willing to train the next person to take over for you. When you can trust everyone behind you to do the exact same job that you can do when you're not there, that makes for a much better team. That's teamwork. And you got to remember, in business, it only takes one bad apple, one, to ruin the whole rest of the bunch. So I always used to say that at work. I would always want to take that one bad apple, the one person that's talking bad about the rest of the coworkers or talking bad about the rest of the place you work in. Take that person, take them aside and say, hey, you got two choices here. You can either get on board or you can get off board and you can just go find a job somewhere else. Because when you have a group that everyone has the same mind, the same goals, the same everything, it makes for a much, much better place to work. And when you are constantly grooming the people under you to take over for you, then you constantly have this rotation of people that can take over for people that you lose. So I know 1,000,000%, we might not know who it is, but there's an Evan Tankstrom or whatever his name is, or someone that is being groomed right now to take over for when Ben Johnson leaves.
Yeah, so I don't know, of all the players, like we don't have multiple coaches. We don't have multiple coaches that are being groomed. So I think that there's one, obviously with Tanner Engstrom on the offensive side of the ball. It's possibly Calvin Shepard on the defensive side of the ball. When I look at, 4 opportunities for just Aaron Glenn, obviously I've been one of the first guys talking about Terrell Williams. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I think that Terrell Williams makes a ton of sense. And to be honest with you, he's never taken a defensive coordinator position, but in 2023, he did take an assistant head coach position under Mike Vrabel with the Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
And he was the head coach of one of the 2024 Senior Bowl teams. And I think that, having the ability to do those things obviously will level him up a little bit in front of the eyes of the Detroit Lions when they're looking for an opportunity in somebody. I think that there's an opportunity for Terrell Williams. I honestly would say that he's probably a front runner. I know that Robert Salah has been thrown out there. I mean, he's already been working with the Packers, right, as a consultant. I don't know that we would want to bring in Robert Salah. I don't think that he would be a great fit. But to your point about grooming replacements, Dan Campbell is not afraid to bring in the brightest, sharpest, best minds in the league. You look at what he's assembled already. I think that he loves to have former players, number one, as almost like a prerequisite you almost have to be a former player to be on this coaching staff.
Was Terrell, was he a former player?
I don't know if he ever played at a high level. I think he played in college, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. Let me take a quick look here.
I like what Lauren is saying in the chat here. Just look at Williams' title, running game coordinator / defensive line. It says a lot right there.
Yeah, it does.
And then Williams played in college, they say.
I thought he played in college, but I'm not seeing it. So,
and hey, what about this? What do you think?
Okay, here we go. He played nose guard at East Carolina, and he helped the Pirates to a Liberty Bowl victory over Stanford in 1995. And then he received a bachelor degree in communications. He started his career at Fort Scott in Kansas, and that followed by 2 years at North Carolina A&T, which is I think that is the same college that Brad Holmes went to, if I'm not mistaken. And then 2 years at Youngstown State, and then 4 years at Purdue, and then 2 years at Texas A&M. So yeah, when you look at his resume, it's Fort Scott, defensive line coach, and then North Carolina A&T, defensive line coach, Youngstown State, defensive line coach, Akron, defensive line coach, Purdue, defensive line coach, Texas A&M, defensive line coach, Oakland Raiders, Miami Dolphins, Tennessee Titans, defensive line coach, Tennessee Titans, assistant head coach and defensive line coach, Detroit Lions, defensive line coach and run game coordinator. So yeah, he knows the defense very, very well. And I think that's where it all starts, is up front. And as long as you keep some good guys with you that obviously know the secondary, know the linebackers, like Calvin Shepard does, Deshae Townsend does, I think he's in great shape. So to me, it's the first fit. After that, Dennis Allen. What about Dennis Allen? Former New Orleans Saints head coach who was fired after a 2-0 start. That doesn't make any sense. You go 2-0 and you get fired. There's a possibility there, right? That's about it for me. Calvin Shepard obviously is on the list, but that's about it for me right now. Offensively, I don't really know right now what I'm looking at, but I'm gonna look into it tonight and see what offensive coordinators that are either in the league right now that are about to lose their jobs, already have lost their jobs because their head coach is gone, and who's coming up through the ranks. I think it starts with a former player, even though Ben Johnson, wasn't he a quarterback in college?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think he was. So he's got a little bit of playing experience, but not NFL experience. So, all right, power rankings, week 18, now that we're off that subject.
Sure. So let me get to that real quick.
Oh, there you go. Mr. Morale 313 has a great comment in here. He said that Terrell Williams was Brad Holmes' D-line coach.
Oh, really?
So there's a big connection there, right?
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Thank you. And then Peter Van Larhoven says Brad and Dan have lists of coaches in case guys. Of course they do. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sure the list is long.
Yeah. A couple of people are talking about Bridgewater in there, but Bridgewater's already came out and said that he's going back to his high school. He wants to run it back. And he said that NFL coordinators live at the facility and never sleep. So he said that is not for him. He likes to sleep.
Yep.
So
you never know, though. You never know.
It might be subterfuge. You don't know. So we'll see. So on to these power rankings. So the post week 18 NFL power rankings came out today from Bleacher Report. And I'm going to name off the top 5 teams. Now, remember, we have 3 teams from the NFC North in the playoffs this year. But in the top 5, there's only one NFC North team. Starting at number 5, we have the Ravens. Number 4 is the Eagles. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. And surprising at number 2 is your Detroit Lions, with the Kansas City Chiefs coming in at number 1.
I'm sorry, but the Kansas City Chiefs did not deserve to be number 1.
Nope.
They don't.
Not after Sunday. They didn't even score a touchdown.
Yeah, but they didn't start anybody.
Yeah, but
every one of their players was out of that game.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's
But the thing is, listen, they have not scored over 30 points one time in the entire NFL season. Their point differential is 57. The Detroit Lions point differential is 222 points.
It's craziness. We've almost scored an entire season's worth of points as the point differential between us and the other teams.
Yeah. Now listen, the Detroit Lions this season scored the 4th most points ever in NFL history. That was the 4th best offense to ever do it this year.
Yeah, it's craziness. It's craziness. I think everybody else where they're slotted, I think that they deserve to be there. And to Riley's point, I mean, yeah, of course, the defending champs. If you want to say that they get a bump for being the defending champs, okay. I think it really goes by what they've done this season. And I would say if you put the Lions' work that they put in this year compared to the Chiefs is not even close. Not even close. Statistically, it's not even close. I mean, the records that our guys are putting up, not even close to what the Chiefs have done. They've barely survived winning a lot of these games. And if you want to blame the refs probably helped them win 7 of those games.
Yep.
So I'm not sold. You had a little update on Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Sure. Amon-Ra St. Brown has done something once again for this season's playoffs. If you guys remember from yesterday's show, my beard was blue like it is for every home game and away game. Amon-Ra dyed his hair back to blue for the playoffs once again. I need to go full bore and just dye my beard blue.
Yeah, I didn't paint my face for this last event. I didn't. I was kind of having a little bit of, should I do it? Should I not do it? We're already in the black uniforms. We're 0-2 in the black uniforms.
Yeah.
I wore everything else the same. Everything else I did was the same, but I didn't paint my face this time.
No, you're wrong. We were not 0-2 in the black uniforms. We were 1-1.
I thought we were 0-2.
No, because if you remember, the game I took you to, the Seahawks game, was the first blackout game. And
yeah, you're right. I thought it was against Tampa for some reason. So yeah, we were 1-1.
See, so what happened was the first game against the Seahawks, I wore this, my Jared Goff black jersey, and we won. And then the second game against the Bills, I wore my black Hutch jersey. So I switched it back to the Goff jersey, and we won against the Vikings.
There you go. If it means something, it means something.
So it was my fault I wore the Hutch jersey last time. I won't do it again. I'll stick to Goff if we wear the blacks again. But I don't think we can wear the blacks again in the playoffs or the Super Bowl. I think it has to be either the blues or the whites.
Yeah, there's no alternates in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, final thing. I've seen this kind of jumping around on social media because everybody saw Aiden Hutchinson on the sideline in the game. And, of course, that sent the home crowd into a frenzy when they panned over to Aiden Hutchinson, and he's kind of getting everybody going. It was good to see. He obviously had the earpiece in so that he was listening to what was going on, all the calls that were going on so he could watch, right, keep his brain going. So here's the question. Do you think that Aiden's going to come back? Is it worth it to put him in? And here's what I'm going to answer it with. If the Detroit Lions trust, if they trust what he has done, if they trust the doctors and he's actually able to get some practice in, which I think is going to be different for Aiden. I don't think that it's just going to be walkthroughs. I think that he's going to have to do some extra things to show this team that he's able to do it, right? The fact that they trusted Alex to come back with a broken forearm, much different here, though. It's not like Aiden's going to go in there with a, carbon fiber, brace all, down his whole leg. He won't be able to move. I think that if the Lions actually trust the situation, it's going to be similar to Alex, that they're going to give him a shot. Do I want that to happen? I would love to see it, but at the same time, I think that there's a stark difference here between what Alex did and what Aiden's going to be able to do. We're talking about a forearm, right, versus a leg. Huge difference. Running is everything to these football players. One arm is almost meaningless to these players. We've seen, I can't remember the guy's name, the player's name that actually did have one arm. He was missing a hand and part of his arm. What was his name? He was a linebacker.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I forget. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you can do it without one arm, you can do it, right? I mean, if your hand is busted up, we've seen guys with clubs on and, braces on and that. One arm is kind of meaningless to a degree, but you have to have both your legs.
Well,
you have to be healthy enough to run and to take a beating, because your legs are what get targeted quite a bit. So I think that's the difference. And that's why I don't think that they're going to take a chance with Aiden coming back, which I mean, sucks. I mean, I know a lot of people want to see him back, but then the biggest part of that is he even going to be ready mentally and physically to do what it's going to take to win a Super Bowl? You know what I mean? This is going to be the most vicious, violent game of the year, I think, for the Detroit Lions. If they get there, when they get there.
Listen, I would love to see it, but I'm starting to be more of a realist with Aiden Hutchinson. We finally got to see him on the sideline because he's good enough to protect himself if someone comes at him. And boy, did they ever time that exactly right. Because Aiden Hutchinson was on the sideline with a hoodie on and a Lions hat, and he was kind of incognito, right? He didn't have anything flashy on or anything. So when they showed him on that third down, or there was a third or a fourth down, and the Lions needed a stop, and they showed Aiden Hutchinson on the big screen, and, he's like hyping everybody up. Come on, get up on your feet. And the place just erupted. It went nuts. And I'm expecting that was when either that or when Anzalone was introduced in pregame. That was when we had to have broken the sound record.
Had to have. That was huge, listening to Aiden.
Yeah.
Huge. Or I'm sorry, listening to Alex run on the field. It was a lot.
Yeah. So, they did it. They timed it up perfect. And I think that's what Hutch's job is going to have to be throughout the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, is he's going to have to be a cheerleader. And it sucks. I really want him back. I want him to play. I want him to get 3 sacks in the Super Bowl. I just don't think it's going to happen this year. He's going to have 6 months of intensive rehab and running and getting himself back and strengthening that leg, because he's got one chicken leg and one regular leg right now. I'm telling you, if you've seen pictures of his legs, his left leg does not look like his right leg.
No, it's quite a bit smaller, and he's running at 50% water level right now. So I think that the weight reduction, I can look real quick, which I'm actually going to be doing some of this training here pretty soon.
Yeah.
I got to get my back rehabbed again.
I took a week off of working out, so I'll be back on the Bowflex today. Oh, it's going to be hard.
So the buoyancy of water reduces body weight between 20% and 80%. And the aquatic technology, that they're utilizing, they have, some sort of a treadmill that's underneath the floor or whatever that he's running on. At 50% body coverage of water, the reduction of weight is at 65%. That's a ton. So you're removing 145, 155 pounds off of that leg while he's running. So look, I want him back. I want to see him back. I think that he would, be another injection onto this defense. I've seen people kind of go both ways with Aiden. One of the guys that we sit with, had a good conversation with him this weekend. We were kind of talking about the situation, and, he said, if you look at what Aiden does, he creates a lot of busy work, right? He's really busy in there, but I think the Lions need to dial him in so that he's more direct. Like, he needs to have more of just a direct path, to the quarterback and not be so busy. I think that Aiden in the wide 9 is where we see him work his best magic. Not in tight, but put him out in the wide 9 a little bit more and have that direct path to the quarterback and have a better angle on the outside tackle. And I think that would work way better than what it has in the past with Aiden, because he gets a lot of pressure, but we know what pressures are. I mean, as long as you move, a tackle or a guard 1 yard back into the box, it's called a pressure. We need to see Aiden get home on every quarterback, not just, the bad offensive lines, but the good offensive lines too. And I think that's what's next for him next year when he's back and fully healthy. I think that we're going to see a huge resurgence from Aiden Hutchinson in his 4th season. I think it's going to be his best season yet, honestly.
You want to know what's going to happen with Hutch next year? He's going to win not 1, but 2 major awards next year. He is going to win Defensive Player of the Year, and he is going to win Comeback Player of the Year next year.
Damn
Book
right
it.
he is.
I'm saying it right
1,000%.
now. Book it.
Might as well bet it now, Eric. I'm sure you already did.
You can't. Not until well, because they haven't even named this year's yet, so that you can't bet next year's already. Otherwise, I would. I'm sure he's going to be a front runner for both awards, and the day after the Super Bowls when you'll be able to bet that.
All right, so that's really it for today. I've got to head out. I've got doctor appointments today. You guys have been great. Almost 500 people in the show today. Do us a favor. Please like, share, and subscribe. The most important thing is to subscribe. This morning, while we've been on the show, we have had 200 new subscribers this morning.
Right on.
200
this week.
Why don't you guys make it another 200? Join the show, because once we get to 8,000, we're giving another signed mini helmet away by Panay Sewell. So every 500, we usually do that. Here's what I'm going to do for the rest of the season. Every 250 subscribers that we get, we're giving away a mini helmet. All you have to do is be subscribed, turn notifications on, because I usually do pop-ups. I'll do a pop-up live, which is just a mini helmet giveaway, and anybody that is in the chat will have an opportunity to win the helmet. So that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the season. We're only about 200 subscribers away, or a little bit less from 8,000. So get it done this morning. Help us out. Subscribe to the channel. We do this every day, Monday through Friday, typically, as long as we don't have a Sunday night game or something crazy. But we're usually here Monday through Friday, 365 days a year. We're right here on the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Eric, have a wonderful day. We'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. We're going to find out what's going on with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn tomorrow afternoon. Talk is there's going to be some interviews happening. So go One Pride, go Detroit Lions. You guys take care.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from uperlights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights, with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit uperlights.com for all your UV flashlight needs, with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from uperlights.com.
Hear them voices rising high. Every morning, feel that passion, let it fly. Talking about the Lions, blue and silver pride. With the podcast, we're rolling, take that ride. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Each play, each kick, we feel alive. Echoes in the city as the fans arrive. The heart of the motor in the screen. We're bound together by a football dream. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the proud's electrified. There under the stadium lights, where legends thrive. Every touchdown, we're close to clock west. In Detroit we stand. Give it out there. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Football dreams in every shout.